Okay, thanks. I'll talk about what NIST is doing about the possible deployment of quantum computers in the next couple of decades. Okay, so the problem is that large quantum computers, they would break most of our public key crypto. That includes RSA, Diffie-Hellman, elliptic curve crypto. Symmetric crypto would not be affected. It's surprising the number of meetings I go where people tell me that AES is gone after quantum computers. That's not the case. But we will need to make keys longer. Full transition to alternatives takes a long time. Judging from the history of these things, we could easily claim about 20 years, okay? I suspect that there may be a greater sense of urgency with respect to the advent of quantum computing. So I'm thinking maybe about 10 years or more. So the time to worry about this is now, okay? This doesn't see enough attention from my point of view. There are long-term privacy and security implications which affect us now. From the privacy perspective, there are things that are being stored now by agencies and possibly industry, which can't be opened now, but will be maybe opened if quantum computers are built, okay? And if you have kids or grandchildren, their DNA profiles may be stored in ways that are maybe opened in the future. So I think it's a severe and threat that we're facing now, not when computers are built, the quantum computers are built, but now. And this, something similar with respect to security implications. I think if quantum computers are built and they are deployed, we will see many years, possibly decades, during which we're going to be discovering all kinds of things being protected by pre-quantum keys. Okay, to get that stuff out of all of our applications is going to be a very difficult task. Okay, so NIST has a post-quantum cryptography project that has been going on for about 5 years now. Our goal is to monitor progress in quantum computers and quantum algorithms, to find and standardize quantum-resistant alternatives for public key encryption, key agreement, and digital signatures, and to ensure the transparency of the process and the integrity of the outcome. This is especially important after the Snowden revelations. This is not a competition. I keep saying this over and over and over again, and people keep coming to me and say, hey, how about the NIST competition? I hope that we will develop significant community consensus at the end of the day, that NIST will basically serve as a sounding board, and eventually we'll have to make a decision, but hopefully the decision will really be made by the community, okay? It's not necessarily true that we'll standardize just one candidate for each of the applications. We may standardize several. The evaluation criteria, when we have a competition, the evaluation criteria needs to be written in stone, because later, if we start changing things later in the game, people cry foul, okay? Now, be warned that this is not written in stone. We know too little about quantum computers right now. We know too little about the actual complexity of candidates to be writing these things in stone and saying we're not going to change it no matter what happens during the next 7 years. Okay, so criteria hopefully will evolve, and it will reflect our gaining knowledge of the situation. There's a call for proposals, which is out. This is the link where they may be submitted. The deadline is November 30 of this year. The discussion about this is through the PQC forum. The current wording of the call for proposals follows a public discussion in this forum, sometimes very loud public discussion, and that's the way we like it, I guess. This is also in this forum where the submissions and germane issues will be discussed. Evaluation criteria is one of those issues that needs to stay in the discussion table. To join this mailing list, just send mail to this link here. Okay, so we are agnostic about what techniques look the best right now. We choose to be agnostic. We want to have an open mind with respect to all the possible ways that people may want to solve this problem, okay? But I'll give you a rough listing of what we see out there now. So for signatures, we see hash-based signatures, code-based, lattice-based, and multivariate-based signatures. The ... means that I'm not going to be held to this being an exhaustive list in any of these, okay? For public key encryption, we see lattice-based, code-based, multivariate. There are others, braid groups and things like that. For key agreement, one can decide that key agreement is not a real topic because once you solve PKE, you have key agreement. No, we chose not to. We want to call it a separate problem, but it can be solved solving the public key encryption problem. But there are lattice-based and isogeny-based and other types of dedicated key agreement protocols out there. With respect to what will change in terms of speed and sizes of things, speed looks good. That's surprising, to me anyhow. Some of these systems look blindingly fast. Key sizes, not so good. They may increase significantly. Some signature sizes look big, not terribly big, but they look big. We'll have to collectively decide if that's okay or not. There may be a significant increase in ciphertext size for short plain texts. I really have no idea how how industry feels about that. What that might do to applications. We really do need to have an impact assessment by industry, especially by industry, but also by the community at large. And we need to have that impact assessment now, as soon as possible, because once there are very few candidates left, and there's some clear, 2 or 3 clear candidates are likely to win this thing, to end up being the standard. then the impact assessments get all muddled by the fact that people will be, advancing their favorite candidates. If we can do it now, that would be very useful. What's public discussion? There's this ongoing discussion. If you've seen the PQC forum, you'll see that there's been this rather strident disagreement about this measure of security that's in the call for proposals. My position about this is that so in this security levels, to really answer the specific wording of the call for proposals, it looks like you need to decide how many quantum gates that's required to break your candidate. Okay. On the other hand, some of us. Let me see. I feel that no candidate should have to be, no proposer should have to be an expert on quantum computation in order to put it in a submission. So if you have any problems with putting a number to this number of quantum gates question, contact us or contact the forum. This is as open as it can be, this process, okay? So contact us, we'll sort it out. Are we just an arm of the NSA? I guess I can't blame the community. I have another project which is dear to my heart, which is the NIST randomness beacon, and sometimes I Google that beacon and it says the NIST NSA beacon, and there's pictures of me with like horns and things. So this committee, this PQC project is a committee of 8 people. There's a report out that spelled out our understanding of this about 8 months ago or so. That report contains the names of 7 of the 8 current members of this team. There's no secrecy there. There's just 8 members of NIST right now. We sit at the table. The NSA has no seat at that table. Okay. However, times are a little scary right now. So watch us. Keep watching us. Okay. We need that. That you protect us by demanding our transparency. Okay, another topic that has been making the rounds is demands that future standards make bad implementations harder. I suspect this would be very hard to do in the abstract. For us, NIST, to agree that we're going to include in the standards this requirement that if you say develop a AES-2, it will have all kinds of tests to check for possible bad implementations. I think that's just not going to fly. I may be wrong. So if you feel strongly about that, please argue with respect to the candidates in the post-quantum cryptography competition. Please make your views be heard in the NIST forum. On the other hand, I think that some of these, I don't know, prophylactics, call it, can be put in place at the end of the game. At the end of this process, 5 years, 6 years from now, it looks like we're really going to do this, standardize this particular algorithm, and you have a good idea of a way to standardize it to make it more resilient to bad implementations, then that's probably the time to argue for those things. If you try to argue for them as a general rule for standards, I think that's not going to fly. How am I doing here? Okay, the timeline. Formal call is out. November 30 is the deadline for the submissions. We'll have, during 2018, we'll have a workshop. And then that will be followed by 3 to 5 years of analysis. We'll report the findings in one, two workshops during this phase, and hopefully 2 years after that we'll have the standards ready. So this is 7 years. This process may take a good 7 years from now. Thank you.
So I have to ask, in the call, there was no, like for signatures, there was no specification on whether you're looking for stateless or stateful signatures? Any opinions on that?
I think first, we are going to take both, candidates for both. So stateful have this private key size problem, which is gigantic. So if there are advantages, if people can argue that for advantages that make us wanting to do that, despite that, then we'll definitely consider them. So both are in play.
Okay, good.
Okay, it was my understanding that NIST had publicly said that they were not interested in hash-based signatures. You are contradicting that?
Yes, I don't know who said that.
I was wondering, you mentioned industry impact assessments, and I'm wondering if any federal agency is doing their own impact assessment that would serve as a model for that. And if not, whether the federal government would be interested in stimulating any industry activity around that.
Oh boy, I think that question, the second part of that question is about my pay grade. I can certainly pass that suggestion on. With respect to what is being done by a federal agency, other than the NSA, which is not going to tell us, I wouldn't trust the assessment that any of these agencies, including NIST, can do. I think it's beyond our capabilities.
Thank you anyway.
Yeah. Actually, I also wanted to clarify. You said it's a panel of 8 people, 7 of which are public, and 1 of which is...
We just hired him. That's why he's not in everybody's name is public. The 8th person was hired after this report was published. So I'll see that the list of I'll see that the list of people who sit at this table is put out somewhere. That will, yeah.
Yeah, last question.
You mentioned making bad implementations harder and perhaps delaying that consideration a little. Perhaps another way of putting it is that you want to make correct implementations easier, and certainly that could perhaps be prioritized early, so that instead of trying to place landmines for bad implementations, we certainly avoid putting in complexities that make good implementations less likely. And that perhaps is a good consideration earlier on.
That should be in the minds of everybody who plans to submit this. So I take that as a suggestion to your submissions.
Great, thanks.